Okay, so packages with green go there, and... Oh, hello there. No, it's all good. I just wasn't paying attention. I thought Matcha had... Yeah, it is pretty messy in here right now. Renovations, hiatus and all. There's bound to be books and merch all over. Oh. Truth be told, we're not quite open yet. Were you a previous patron? Or did you just discover us recently? No, nothing exclusive. We welcome you here anytime, especially on this fine morning. I'm Reese. Actually, we are making some pastries for a little delivery. We might not be fully operating yet, but we do take short orders. They're almost done. Would you like to try some? There are also some other options, but if so, there's just gonna be a little bit of a wait. Today's special. Well, at least the one I'd like to serve is called To the Moon and Back. It's pretty flavorful, but really overall light, so you don't have to worry about a sugar crash. Yes, I'll be happy to get that for you. Do take a seat over there. If there's any book that catches your eye, feel free to sift through the mountain pile. I recommend the one on the top left.
I'm home. Home. Be it large or simple, you had free reign over most everything behind closed doors, and nothing feels nicer than beelining towards a couch after another long day in the life of a graduate of Sumeru Academia's Immorta. This wasn't unusual, but admittedly, today was a change of pace, opting affiliation with Tainari and the Forest Rangers than the usual hours at either Bimarston or Aru Village. Though, of course, the extra travel also demanded more out of you. Realm's passion aside, how do people do this? Was this really what you wanted for the rest of your life? On top of that, you'd been plagued all day with a nagging feeling of forgetting something crucial.
If you're gonna ask for a blanket, tell me now.
See, fatigue has a funny way of working sometimes. In this case, partial blindness could be blamed for missing the man simply sat across you. Regardless, you are too tired to spare them a glance. Go away. The couch is too soft. Alhaitham sighed, although seemingly heeding your request. It wasn't long, though, for the unfurling of cloth to tickle your ears, consequently causing a drowsy protest. Wait, no. Oh, don't let me dirty the
It's yours.
sheets.
And laundry day.
I'll get up at like...
So it'll inevitably be added to your pile later.
He said, returning to the adjacent couch. Wait. What is it? Did you already eat?
Considering it's nearly morning again, yes. You?
Though your eyes were closed, you could feel his gaze on you, prompting you to sit up, hugging the blanket, in hopes of waning sleep. Yeah, learned a few recipes today I think you'd like. Want them over the weekend? Later. You glanced, realizing he was yet again preoccupied with a book. Surely he didn't stay up all night for it.
Sure. Before anything, at least take your shoes off already. I don't want sand or mud in the house.
He started, still steadily fixed on the pages.
And go take a shower once you've rested, lest you make a hobby of spreading possible diseases.
Okay, jeez. Okay, alright. I'm getting up. I'll try not to make you sick. Oh, great acting, Grandsage. You know, just so you know, I am mixing all of your colored clothes today. Later, whenever I wake up. You spat jokingly, getting up in resignation, far too accustomed to mistake his nagging to be simply out of rudeness. And maybe add a little... He shot a familiar deadpan as you passed, putting the book down and hooking an arm around your waist. Wait. With a yelp and lack of coordination, you flailed, tumbling gracelessly onto him. Alhaitham! Needless to say, this was more effective than caffeine.
Any other complaints?
I'd appreciate a little warning before sweeping me off my feet. Literally. You swatted the hair off your face, looking up to his amusement.
You sound surprised. If you bathe now, whilst tired, you'd have a higher risk of coming down with something. And you call yourself a graduate of Amorta.
You pursed your lips. Hey, I am. And as such, I get to lecture myself about my own health. No matter how hypocritical that is. If you're so concerned, why don't you do the laundry? While you're at it, maybe dust your beloved shelves? When he didn't bother responding, you settled on giving the room a proper once-over. Blinking remaining blur, you noticed fewer illuminations accompany the leftover moonlight through the windows. Its consoling nature aided what little effort was needed to further lull you to sleep. Sliding down to rest your head onto his lap.
Come here.
Both content, he reached for the book once more, flipping yet another page as his free hand settled between the strands of your hair. The familiar motion, easing you to relax.
Quick to aggravate, quick to subdue. You become more like your best friend every day.
Kave?
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about your boyfriend, then maybe. You comment, heavy lids gaining enough strength to accommodate an eye roll. Anyways, what are you even reading? In low light at that. Needless to say, quite an enigmatic sight.
Only to prevent someone from recognizing it before I finish the best parts. Not like one could, given it's a difficult and abstruse book. Made for others to scratch their heads in confusion, lest knowing its context.
You sadist. He chuckled.
I'm only joking. I don't delight in others' miseries, and rarely do I encounter a book that's difficult for me. Though it is a rather interesting read indeed.
Either you delight in being way too studious, which, kudos, no such thing, or need a new hobby. Let me guess. Another acquired from exploiting, quote-unquote, your position?
Oh?
Hey, no complaints, no complaints. If you... You scoff jokingly.
Well, if you insist. Though halfway through an entry, I have no doubt you'll be able to follow regardless.
No. Hold on. Yeah. If half a brain will suffice, then proceed. You state, leaning a cheek against his torso.
I was growing fidgety inside of Lambat's tavern, waiting for Yasmin and the rest of her group.
He started.
After all, armed with only a month to familiarize myself with Sumeru, and battered by 2 consecutive all-nighters of laboriously tallying research data, nothing was in my favor. Poisons and toxins were easily sourced from the countless flora in this part of the region.
Novel,
See
maybe?
diagram below.
That's new. This character sounds like they've been through the ringer. With the research you'd been conducting yourself, it wasn't that hard to sympathize. What was still, right. At least that one paper had already been submitted. Though the research for those toxins were unfinished. That person did pay a whole lot of mora for the tidbits of information gathered. Who even was?
One we thought was worth studying was this variety of mushroom. It caught our interest given its serendipitous discovery from another ongoing research. Consisted of a similar makeup to common fruits, but
this
such had an exception.
sounded familiar.
It was the perfect research that time.
Of course.
It had benefits.
Even the novels he'd read would be educational.
And unfortunately, the potential for harm. Strangely, was only activated when mixed with specific acids.
Researchers' notes. Perhaps. Were they chasing a dream too? Was it enough?
The only thing pushing me was the fact that I wanted this. The trip from my homeland, Inazuma, was nerve-wracking enough. Even after waiting nearly a year after things settled to even consider applying towards becoming a scholar.
Wait.
I wasn't about to squander.
This sounds all too familiar.
Alhaitham, what book is this?
Speaking of, what time is it?
He continued, although you felt his body stiffen.
I feel nauseated.
Alhaitham?
Archon's sake, am I even in the right place?
With the audible skip of pages, you opened your eyes, seeing the familiar words of the book he held out of reach. To the moon and back.
Hey, so that's what's been bugging me this entire day. Alhaitham, give it.
Pushing off him with a string of curses, you tried reaching to
Alhaitham,
retrieve
I
your
swear.
journal.
And here I thought I was just having a midlife crisis.
You
Wait.
paused at what you
Which
just
is
said.
none of your concern, by the way, and so is this. Now give it.
Little more.
Just give it.
Oh,
A lucky stretch managed to retrieve it somehow, leaving you glaring down at him. He eyed the journal once more, reminiscing.
the tavern, huh? If I remember correctly,
Yeah. You already know about this. The day we met, I was scatterbrained and, frankly, exhausted. Same as today. Bumped and spilt soup on you, apologized profusely, and you, taking advantage of the fact that I was fresh meat on campus and barely knew people, claimed to be a feeble scholar. Only to find out a week later, whilst requesting research files, what a lie that was. And the rest is history. End of entry. Good night!
You rushed. It wasn't like you were mad. If anything, there wasn't anything in that book he wasn't aware of. Well, save for...
oh really? That isn't how I recall it.
I may be reactive, but I am also tired. And I really do want to head to bed.
You breathed.
Excuses. With how you're acting, there might actually be a reason for
Good night.
Be my guest. Though don't expect me to climb in with someone who hasn't
Okay,
showered.
I do plan to shower before bed. If you just make way.
Nor am I to be disturbed when you inevitably wake up feeling the pang of hunger just when you've settled in.
Okay, instead of pointing out the obvious,
As if on cue, your stomach grumbled, protesting the abuse of its emptiness.
you know what, on second thought, right, I'll be making breakfast, new recipe, and I'll, you cover for lunch? Is that okay?
And be too full to sleep.
He waved nonchalantly, already heading to the kitchen.
But do what you want. If you need me, I'm making tea.
You sighed at this. Maybe you should do a research on love next. Surely such a phenomenon wouldn't fully categorize as trivial, right? Though, honestly and realistically, I wonder...
Welcome home, darling. How was work? Would you like a bath? Dinner? Or...
A picturesque love story, romanticized straight from a novel. That kind of love felt clinical, rather childish.
What are you on about this time?
Nothing.
Though curious, he didn't turn, still busy with whatever tea he was preparing. You had quite the anomaly to study in front of you. You found yourself thinking such, whilst you trailed after him regardless. Exhibit A. If you find yourself smiling at the simplest thought of them,
You okay?
too late.
Yeah.
That day, the research. This was an important study, of course, given the catalyst for disaster was common in local ingredients, such which you didn't realize was in the soup you just finished then. Thank realms an upset stomach is all it resulted.
Look, I already apologized. Unless you want to make an array of half-digested food painting your clothes, I suggest letting me go.
Oh!
If you want further compensation, let's meet back here for dinner. We can talk after.
He reminisced in sassed mimicry, finally turning with plates in hand. Ideal circumstance, as he called it.
Okay, hold on. Let me let me get into character. Forgetting how deep is your voice? Forgetting to air out an enclosed area whilst dealing with the resulting fumes of an experiment was, safe to say, stupid.
I sound
Oh, I can't get
nothing like that.
What's even stupid?
Terrible misrepresentation.
Stupider was the guy keeping me hostage, albeit explaining such.
Or making decisions altogether whilst running on autopilot, only to blame it on a concerned stranger.
He said, handing you the fried meat and vegetable dish he had to reheat. Such was enough acknowledgement. Before, of course, going back to the current episode of your daily banters.
It seems you're perfectly capable of taking care of yourself. I don't have much suggestions to offer you. Seeing as you're still in the academia, whether by choice or obligation, you probably don't need my help.
You sat on the table, letting your feet dangle. He, in return, eyed the dish, as if to urge you, before his efforts of reheating it goes to waste.
I was simply being wary of a suspicious person, especially one who was bumbling around Sumeru for less than a month, which, speaking of, the best parts?
Who knows how much you've read before I got home? Didn't you say you were at the best parts?
He eyed you, gently waving the journal back in hand.
How would I know?
The plate made a soft, dull thud as you placed it back down, breathing deep. This was quite the anomaly indeed. Nothing but what felt like hostility was being exchanged, yet you couldn't help but feel warm.
You know, you've always been the unusual type of person.
Well, I quite enjoy this feeling of being the odd one out. Uniqueness is also an asset, is it not?
Yeah. but given how we both sway from small talk, you're not really one to rile me up pointlessly. Tactful and blunt. Even your supposed coldness is elicited by a reason. You are rather nice, you know?
Oh? I'm only nice to certain people. I will voice my disagreement if I think you are doing something poorly.
Right. You told me before. Those who understand the rules can delineate from boundaries and identify gray areas. Finding interest in the ambiguity of certain things and the opportunity for something to be advantageous in the right hands. Your friendship with Kave is evidence enough, I think. You ask care in small banters, even when you'd rather be left to your own devices. And even after 5 years, I can't claim to know you, as only you can truly know yourself. But
His stance wavers,
at least
loosening as Alhaitham placed the journal
I
aside,
think-
sitting on the chair before you.
I do know you.
At a perfect height to lean forward
Enough
and
to
nestle on your
question.
chest,
What in Archons are you getting at this time?
listening to the rhythmic thumps of your heart. His hair was all you can see at first, tempting you to play with it, as you usually would, before he leaned slightly, craning his face. Only then did you notice that he too was on the verge of sleep. Seems he too had been up all night, after all.
Finally asking the right questions.
Your simple facades won't work on me anymore.
Neither would yours.
You paused at this.
Frankly, you know I'm fascinated by how you think. Or at least what you can accomplish when you really put your mind to it.
He continued.
Having a slip-up like accidentally leaving something as cherished as your journal out?
I can.
Versed in non-answers.
At least.
Is unlike you. Lest something bothersome refuses to leave. I noticed you've been waking up in the middle of the night for a while now.
He confessed.
And just sometimes sitting, staring blankly, reading or writing something.
It's just uncertainty.
You trailed towards his hair, holding him closer. Each reassuring stroke calming you both.
If it's any consolation, I can assure its contents are yours alone. I simply pretended to read until you asked.
All this time, you thought the discomfort wasn't as significant to notice. Rather, in hindsight, of course he would. Things of importance don't just get past him easily, and you shouldn't have doubted this would either.
I can, or at least try, to handle my own issues.
You soothed.
After all, like most people, it's just doubts on what I'm doing, what I'm supposed to be doing. These journals, they're parts of my life that I barely remember, even though I wrote in great detail. It feels as if it's the only thing that I have the most jurisdiction over, and yet sometimes, while reading, it's like someone else wrote them entirely. I don't know, I've barely come to terms nor understood it myself.
He simply leaned further, listening to each breath. Your words, your presence.
Unhappiness is the gap of where you are and where you want to be. Based on my observations, many people inflict trouble upon themselves. Life already has enough hardships. No need to add to them.
Okay.
And yet,
Being nervous accomplishes nothing, whether you acknowledge it or not. The life you live is a choice, and it's yours to make. Every day you are handed a blank slate, free to do with it as you please. Seems you just don't know what to do with it yet. In a way, you and Kaveh share the tendency to worry a lot, overthinking things. Only difference is, while he'd get worked up, you stay silent. Didn't think I'd prefer the fuss, up until now.
you smiled. How many nights have been spent like this? How many seemingly mundane talks, heated banters, petty remarks, and yet finding solace in the other regardless. 5 years sure flew fast. Admittedly, if it weren't for Kaveh either, you two would still despise each other. But
I read an interesting thesis about things we can fuel if, hypothetically, the energy we quote-unquote create as humans on a daily basis can be used to power things up.
Don't humans already do that regardless?
I meant on a mathematical basis. Smarty.
Okay. Thesis?
It wasn't an official thesis, or done so for leisure, as I doubt the academia would fund seemingly menial hypotheses that could potentially cause interest in rather inhumane experiments, save for maybe Valhumana finding loopholes. But I digress. Do you know why people say to the moon and back?
he paused, recalling your journal cover.
Aesthetics aren't really something I put into consideration. But I guess to express the incomprehensible vastness of one's affection.
The distance to the moon and back isn't really incomprehensible, is it? Well, a human heart produces enough energy to drive a vehicle, say, at least 20 miles a day. We live, give or take, 70 years? Let's just say this was true. Factual. Statistics and all, Considering how far the moon is.
238,855 miles.
Now, if you try to compute the hypothetical miles that your heart pumps in a lifetime, you can make that trip and still have some to spare. Thus, yeah, you're right. Very aesthetic way of saying that. Rather morbid.
He momentarily pulled
Interesting
away,
take.
looking up at you.
Rather than lacing my words with rhetoric, I prefer speaking factually.
I know. What I'm trying
But
to
that's just my
say
personal
is,
inclination. So long as you're happy, then that's fine.
He smiled. 5 years, and yet some things just never change.
You love this person. With all the blood your heart has and will pump. Your entire life. And some more.
He wasn't one for romanticizing much. And through the years, guiltily, it has rubbed off on you. Given the circumstances, it wasn't like life would afford you such either. Neither could be the first thing the other woke up to, and may not even be the last thing either fell asleep to. You didn't have an inclination for lavish dates, simply opting rest instead, or due to mismatched schedules. But there wasn't anything that could be traded for this.
Forget it.
You grumbled.
Researching us would be pointless, not to mention the inherent bias.
Do you delight in being a nuisance to communicate with?
Doesn't your Darshan specialize in both linguistic and non-linguistic communication methods? What a waste of the 20-language
know.
prerequisite.
Be nice.
He shot you a look.
Same smart mouth. Smart hands. Smart mind. That's never been up for debate.
If you find yourself smiling at the simplest thought of them,
You are a very flawed person.
What?
Messy, stubborn, opinionated, and argumentative to no ends at times.
You simply looked at him. All ears. He had a way of doing that. Pulling your attention all to himself. All without asking. Is this supposed to make me feel better? Then again,
Come here.
you gave it freely. Without hesitation.
I adore every bit of that. You. Getting to know that person. Getting to see you. Indulge myself in you. Watch you as you make those choices that make you.
A complex intoxication induced by something more potent than any toxin or poison. After all, at a given dose, anything can be poison. And he was something you'd willingly drown in.
It's considered impolite to leave someone hanging.
There wasn't a question? That wasn't what you wanted to say. There really wasn't?
Is that so?
he smiled smugly, eyes filled with a rare glint of mischief.
You sighed at this, before giving into a chuckle once more. Maybe 2 words for now. Thank you for caring, at least in our own way. There was so much she wanted to say, yet nothing earned the cooperation from your lips. So, you simply smiled, taking him in, as if committing every feature, every bit you could, to memory. Maybe, if you were as eloquent as you'd written in those journals, Maybe if he'd actually read the pages. Maybe one day you'd let him. But maybe one day, you won't need to. Or, at least I stand with what Kaveh usually says.
Kaveh, huh? I suppose you'd find him a more pleasant companion up in the moon, albeit those be my words. Very well. I hope you enjoy yourselves.
Is that?
You paused.
Is that?
Of course not.
So, not.
As I mentioned before, in the end,
Right.
lead the life you want to
not-
lead.
Sound advice. Maybe I will.
You smiled as he eyed the sunrise through the window.
I'll aim far and high.
Sounds
I don't
fun.
understand if you have your reservations.
I have no qualms if it's finally to bed. Then,
To the moon?
and back. Can you try speaking for me real quick?
Mic test.
Hello?
Ooh, it sounds so intimate. I love it.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. Now we can...
I have a lot to cut out. It's okay. Anything for good audio, right?
Oh man, this is gonna sound too sexy for my own good.
So mixing all of your
No, that sounds terrible. Now I'm gonna spit all over my phone.
It is so tight in here.
Actually, it's a better shape. It's just like IRL lips.
It has taken a year. Wait, I have good reason.
Hold still, girly.
Oh, that's a story for another time.
I like that. It's just pat.
Hopefully it's still running, and hopefully the universe doesn't hate me.
Oh, cause yeah. Merry Christmas phone case. Wait, I'm looking at finally asking the right questions. Where am I? Any other we'll do that again. See, I was like shoving my fingers to my lips and like pushing my head back and everything, giving myself whiplash. Obviously I'm a different person than 6 months ago when I recorded this.
We're done! I'll be editing this ASAP! Let's go!
This my favorite one. It's like
Hi, Teacups. It has really been a while. I'll create a little video separate to this one. Just kind of saying hi again, I guess. Yeah. See you around. I'm way too sleepy for this. I'm going to bed.